Welcome everybody to the January 8th, 2024 first meeting of the new year of the LA City Health Commission. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Avila is not here. Commissioner Chapa?
Present.
Commissioner Grimmick is not here. Commissioner Hisarick?
Here.
Commissioner Ho?
Present.
Commissioner Cato?
Present.
Commissioner Kalfani? Present. Commissioner Lemus?
Present.
Commissioner Mandel?
Present.
Commissioner Osi did let me know that she would not be able to join us. Commissioner Pack is absent. Commissioner Shannon?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Can I ask for approval of the minutes of October 16th?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I second.
Second, any comments or discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Anybody opposed? Carries. Is anybody here from the Neighborhood Council? Seeing none, is there anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, then it's with great pleasure to have our esteemed Department of City Planning have a presentation on the ongoing work of the Health Environmental Justice Unit. Could you please introduce yourselves, and the floor is yours. Thank you very much for coming to present to us, to educate us, and to all the people in the city of Los Angeles. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. My name is Marie Cobian. I'm the Senior City Planner overseeing the City Planning Department's new Health and Environmental Justice Unit. The last time the City Planning Department was before you was July of 2022, when Principal City Planner Ken Bernstein provided a great presentation of the city's plan for a healthy Los Angeles. He also highlighted some of the implementation that would be occurring within the department's newly formed Environmental Justice Unit. This unit is tasked with completing a comprehensive review and update of environmental justice policies in our general plan, as well as focusing on climate equity, beginning with the preparation of a climate vulnerability assessment. At the time, I had just recently been assigned to oversee this work, but did not yet have any staff. However, last year, the department was fortunate enough to formally assign staff to this unit, and today we have a team of 6 and are also looking to add a few more members to the team in the coming months. Our unit is dedicated to the advancement of environmental justice. This work is extremely important and continues to be part of the public conversation when we talk about land use in the city. The Plan for Healthy Los Angeles serves as the primary location of goals and policies linking land use to health, well-being, equity, and environmental justice, with an emphasis on meeting the needs of vulnerable communities. Many communities of the city continue to be burdened by environmental and health impacts caused by historic land use decisions of the past. And we as a department acknowledge there is more work to be done to advance environmental justice goals in the city. So today I am joined by the 3 city planners leading this work, Jonathan Ayon, Fabiola Inzunza, and Gabriela Juarez. You will hear from each one of them as they provide an overview of our work program and also provide an update on the implementation progress of the Plan for a Healthy Los Angeles. I will now hand off to Jonathan.
Thank you, Marie. Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide an overview of the Environmental Justice Policy Program, which just launched last summer. We're excited to do this important work. Again, my name is Jonathan Ayon, and as Marie mentioned, we are from the City Planning Department's newly formed Environmental Justice team. Our work program includes 2 major components, including a comprehensive review of the environmental justice policies in our general plan through a robust community engagement process, and ensuring climate equity is essential in future climate planning efforts. Today, residents in many of the city's lower-income neighborhoods and communities of color continue to be more likely to live next to incompatible land uses, truck routes, and other environmental hazards that affect their health and daily lives. Combined with poor socioeconomic conditions, these communities face negative impacts on the quality of life. The map on the right side of the slide is part of the Los Angeles Community Health and Equity Index. The index is part of the Health Atlas, a supporting document of the health element of the city's general plan. The index maps the relationships between social, economic, and environmental factors, and as you can see, communities of highest need are highlighted by the darker orange shade. These communities include areas of the valley such as Pacoima and North Hollywood, South Los Angeles, Boyle Heights, and communities in the harbor such as Wilmington. In 2016, Senate Bill SB 1000 was adopted requiring cities in California to identify disadvantaged communities and address environmental justice issues in their general plan through a community engagement process. While a 2021 targeted update to the health element demonstrated that the city is in compliance with SB 1000, City Plan heard from communities and organizations that there needs to be a more comprehensive community engagement process. This new work program also builds on several other department efforts. For example, 2 of our recently adopted community plans in South and Southeast LA address long-standing land use incompatibility issues and establish rezoning regulations that protect sensitive uses. In December of 2022, the City Council adopted the Oil and Gas Drilling Ordinance, which prohibits new oil and gas extraction activities across the city and makes all existing extraction activities a non-conforming use. Today, our department is working on amendments to the city's current landscape ordinance to create new landscape and site design objective standards and supporting the emerging research that links public health outcomes to the built environment. Through the launch of this multi-year program and building on other such efforts that center the voices of our most impacted residents in Los Angeles, city planning continues the commitment to address past inequitable land use practices and ensure that equity is a priority in all of our work. The scope of the program includes general plan updates with the purpose of centralizing and strengthening or setting goals, policies, and implementation programs focused on advancing environmental justice in our city. As part of this program, we'll be updating the health element and the air quality element and making targeted updates to the open space element. General plan elements include high-level policies to guide decision-making, as well as targeted list of implementation programs that the city will carry out to accomplish policy goals. While general plan is maintained and updated by the Department of City Planning, it reflects the work and policy direction for all city departments. It is important to note that reaching the city's environmental justice and climate equity goals requires considerable collaboration across city departments and other relevant agencies. As mentioned, this program is a multi-year effort that will consist of several phases. A robust community outreach and engagement strategy is embedded throughout the length of the project. We're nearing the end of the initial outreach phase now. The input we receive during the first outreach phase will inform the drafting and updated new policies and programs. This first year of our work will also be complemented by the completion of a climate vulnerability assessment, which we will share more about momentarily. Drafts will continue to be shared and refined until we reach the plan adoption phase. This phase will launch with an open house and public hearing and then move through various decision-making bodies until we reach the full council adoption. Now, I'll pass it over to my colleague Fabiola to provide an update on the health element progress report.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good evening, Commissioners. Fabiola Insunza with City Planning. One of the first tasks completed by the Environmental Justice Team was the Health Element Progress Report in July of 2023. The report provides the status and summary of each of the 91 programs in the Health Element from 2015 to 2022. As we know, the Health Element contains 7 goals that cover an array of topics such as health and equity, parks and open space, and safe and just neighborhoods. Each goal identifies policies, including supporting objectives and implementation programs. The programs represent potential future actions where additional city efforts are needed to either address an unmet need or to build upon the city's current activities. Decisions to implement specific programs are discretionary and governed by program cost, available funding, staffing, feasibility, and similar considerations. The Department of City Planning is the primary city department responsible for maintaining general plan elements, including reporting on each program's implementation status. However, approximately 25 different city departments and 3 outside agencies are identified as responsible for carrying out the health element programs. It's important to note that while the health element is the primary location of health, equity, and environmental justice programs, it's not an exhaustive list of all of the current activities related to these areas. For this report, city planning staff coordinated and collected information from 21 responding city departments to document the status of the implementation programs under their purview. And so based on the research conducted for this report, the city is implementing about 3/4 of the health elements programs in various ways. As you can see from the pie chart on this presentation, 62% are being implemented continuously and categorized as ongoing. 13% are being partially implemented, and 3% have taken an alternative implementation approach. 1% of the programs have been completed, 11% have not started, and about 1% are currently paused. So again, that's 3/4 of the health element programs being implemented in various ways. And although this is the 78% number or 3/4 number is being implemented, the degree to which any of those programs are being implemented can vary, and it's difficult to assess based on the unique specificities of any given program. The implementation programs that have yet to start or are being implemented in a partial manner do represent opportunities for future funding or staffing, for instance. As indicated by the various categories, several programs have been or are being implemented in an alternative, substitute, or partial manner. In some instances, a department's attempt to implement a program in a substitute or partial manner is due to constrained funding sources and staffing. In other instances, this may reflect an updated approach or strategy or is responsive to public feedback, for instance. So an example is Program 41, which calls for amending the zoning code's oil drilling district to better regulate new and existing oil-related uses through performance standards that provide protections for residential and other sensitive land uses. However, the oil and gas drilling ordinance took a significantly different and stronger approach to how these uses are regulated. It amended the Los Angeles Municipal Code to prohibit new oil and gas extraction and make existing extraction activities a non-conforming use in all zones, pardon me. Furthermore, through the ongoing preparation of an amortization study, the city's Office of Petroleum Administration is leading the effort to develop phase-out activities related to, the Office of Petroleum Administration is leading the effort to develop phase-out activities related to existing oil and gas extraction operations, which are known to cause potential health, safety, and environmental impacts. While there have been some important accomplishments to date, additional work remains to be done to fully implement the abandonment and remediation of existing sites throughout the city and return those properties to a use that provides community amenities. Other takeaways from the research conducted for this report include feedback from various departments regarding the need to review and update some existing programs to reflect a change in approach or best practices. Several departments also face implementation challenges due to the need for funding and/or staffing. Therefore, the report can help identify areas where increased funding is needed and is an opportunity for the City Council to increase resources. Lastly, the findings in the report provide valuable background information that will inform our environmental justice policy efforts. You can find the complete report on our website at planning.lacity.org under the Environmental Justice section tab. And now to discuss a little bit more about our outreach and engagement strategy for this work program. Meaningful involvement is a centerpiece of the definition of environmental justice. and a critical component of this work program. To engage communities that are most impacted by environmental injustice, we are using a variety of methods to provide multiple venues for feedback. Last fall, we launched a working group composed of environmental justice organizations who are providing feedback on the policy development process. This year, we plan to launch a technical advisory committee to bring together key city departments and relevant agencies to guide the development and prioritization of implementation programs based on community feedback. The environmental justice team was busy last year attending numerous community events throughout the city to collect feedback from community members. We participated in open street festivals like Ciclavia in North Hollywood and South Los Angeles, as well as Move Your Way in Pacoima. In Northeast Los Angeles, we tabled at a Dia de los Muertos community resource fair. We've also set up outside of supermarkets and farmers markets in South Los Angeles and Boyle Heights to meet people where they are. The team has hosted virtual office hours and even hosted in-person office hours at a library in South Los Angeles. These office hours are an opportunity for community members to meet one-on-one with staff and provide in-depth feedback about their environmental justice concerns. Starting this month, we will be hosting ongoing office hours every first and third Wednesday of the month. Our project website is maintained with these and other project updates, including our effort to gather responses for our community survey. The team has also presented to various organizations and is looking to work with additional groups to organize workshops and focus groups. Lastly, we'd like to note that during a previous budget cycle, we received funding to launch a program to compensate community-based organizations for their efforts to help us reach a wider cross-section of the city. Unfortunately, we were unable to encumber the funds through a bidding process, and subsequently we lost that funding. For this reason, the team is actively seeking additional funding opportunities to establish a paid community-based organization engagement program in the near future. I will now hand it over to Gabriela Juarez to provide additional insight into our climate equity work. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Gabriela Juarez with City Planning. A parallel effort to the Environmental Justice Work Program is a Climate Vulnerability Assessment, or CVA, which will focus on how climate change directly impacts people and communities. As our team has been sharing, physical vulnerabilities from climate change impacts are exacerbated by significant disparities in health, equity, and the built environment, which makes understanding climate hazard risk and mapping mitigation strategies extremely complex. With this in mind, the city is prioritizing the meaningful engagement of disproportionately pollution-burdened and vulnerable communities to understand the social vulnerabilities of climate hazards. The Community Partners Program is the main component of the community engagement process for the CVA. The Community Partners Program is a paid partnership with community-based organizations to meaningfully engage vulnerable and sensitive communities, including Angelenos who traditionally do not engage in government processes, Angelenos of color, and monolingual non-English speakers. The goal is to enlist community-based organizations that have a focus on populations residing in South Los Angeles, Northeast Los Angeles, the Harbor, and the Central and North San Fernando Valley, which include areas of the city experiencing the greatest hardships. Our department is partnered with the Climate Emergency Mobilization Office, or CEMO, and the Emergency Management Department, or EMD. The intention is to dovetail the forthcoming Heat Action and Resilience Plan, also known as the HARP, led by CEMO, and the Local Hazard Mitigation Plan, or LHMP, update led by EMD, and this environmental justice policy work into a seamless climate equity citywide policy approach and recommendation. This concludes our presentation, and staff is available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight and enlightening us. So I think we could stipulate that LA City is one of the most underparked cities in America. And the biggest issue there is really where to get the funding to create parks and to maintain the parks. How does your committee or your department address that, and what can we do to help you to advocate to increase the number of parks and the quality of the parks in the city of Los Angeles?
Hi, Fabiola Insunza with City Planning. Yes, within the scope of our work program, we are addressing a targeted amendment to our open space element, which is where we would talk about park equity, park access, park site planning, et cetera. There's like two major components of our scope here. One is developing the broader goals, objectives, and policies that will be embedded within the general plan. And the second component is developing implementation programs or strategies that will implement that vision, those goals, objectives, policies. And so we are really seeking feedback to help us form those strategies and programs to help further implement the goals that we are developing through our community feedback process. So the best way for us to hear about what your thoughts are on park equity is to provide us that feedback directly. We're making a call out to community to let us know areas of the city where they have a vision for the future of open space in their neighborhood, and we're taking that feedback to develop those goals, policies, objectives, and then those programs to implement. So that's the scope of our program at this point.
Gabriela Juarez, City Planning. We are also looking to use the opportunity through the climate vulnerability assessment to look at other nature-based solutions, because it is difficult to establish new parks in a city of this size. So we're looking to creatively think about parkways and other opportunities to really focus on the areas that we've already identified that need tree equity, tree canopy equity. We have a report back that's available in the council file. We're happy to give you the report back link that speaks to the various opportunities that other departments are helping us identify solutions to tree equity throughout the city, as well as, looking at the CVA as an opportunity to come up with additional nature-based solutions to help us achieve some of the same opportunities that parks can provide our communities throughout the city.
And one final thing to add to that is, as part of our process, we're also convening city departments into a technical advisory committee. So we will be approaching all the departments with the feedback we get from the community and asking them to come to the table and together with us develop future implementation programs. And because Parks is within the purview of the Rec and Parks Department, we're looking forward to working closely with them to develop opportunities for future parks.
Just a quick question to that. Someone mentioned that 21 of the departments responded, but there were 4 non-responsive. Are you going to include and work with that? And what was the reason that there were 4 departments that were non-responsive?
We don't have the exact answer for that. So there's a lot of coordination with other departments. We know that other departments, may be understaffed or very busy. So when we were doing the status report and reaching out to the various departments, there was a lot of follow-up and coordination with those departments. And unfortunately, there were some departments that we just didn't get responses from.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
No problem. Have there been previous suggestions or recommendations from your department to the city to create more parks? And if so, why have those not moved further down the line?
So we do consistently provide policies and programs that address the need for parks, especially in park-poor areas of the city. When we did the updates to the South LA and Southeast Los Angeles community plans, we included various policies that speak to the need to provide open space in areas that are the most park-poor areas of the city. Again, we don't implement the programs. We try to work with the departments that do implement the programs. So there's no implementation plan per se behind the programs. So as funding becomes available, as City Council is able to secure additional funding, then ideally the departments can look to the list of programs and see what the priorities are for each community, because those programs are based and reflect the desires of each community. Ideally, they should look to those to prioritize those areas for additional park space.
So the school-age population in Los Angeles has been going down, and it's projected over the next 10 years to go down even further. There is a large amount of property that's owned by the LA school system. Has there been suggestions or recommendations for a loan of that space or a giving of that space to the Parks Department so to create new parks in underserved areas?
Yes, those are definitely policies that you will see throughout our different community plans. And unfortunately, it's not something that you'll see in the current open space element. So that's why we're doing this targeted update to infuse it more equity and environmental justice policies and programs into the open space element. But we do have, for example, joint use policies where parks and schools can jointly use open space areas of the schools, and you know, those, you'll see those programs, those policies, in the primarily in the South LA community plans, because those are the most needy plan areas.
Has there been resistance to allow joint use and/or for schools that have been closed or will be closed to give that to your department?
I think the joint use issue, there are some questions of liability, and I've only seen 1 or 2 projects move forward with a joint use partnership. I don't know about schools that are closing. That might be a new opportunity for open space.
Great. Other commissioners?
I have a quick question, just curious. I was part of LA County's Community Prevention and Population Health, and so there's a land use, equitable land use subcommittee, and just curious, is there any overlap between, it's a large LA, I mean, it's a county effort, but it actually, sounds like a lot of repetition between the two, and just wondering, especially when you talked about staffing shortages, funding, and knowing that there's efforts, and then you have large land use CBOs that are moving lots of work. I know they were doing lots of things around fracking, also looking at the oil. So it's just like curious if what that overlap looks like, especially when you are talking about being understaffed and issues with funding. What does that kind of combined integration of work look like, or does it even exist?
Well, I would say it depends on the department. We don't really have control over budgets for the other departments. We only, you know, have access to the budget for the city planning department. And again, we don't really implement a lot of these programs or policies. So we have to rely on our sister departments to help, and they would need to prioritize the programs and go after the funding for those.
So it's less about going after the funding, it's more of the why repeat, you know, why duplicate efforts? If there's work already happening in targeted communities, what's the effort? I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around what are some of those efforts?
Between the county and the city?
Yeah, especially when you're talking about this question around parks. And I know there's lots of efforts, and so it's just trying to figure out how do you, I mean, shouldn't be doing something on one end without understanding what's happening on the other end, and how do you close those gaps? If there are limitations, you know, if you are coming up with policies, yes, you're leaning on others to move it forward, but what is bringing it together?
That's a great point, and that's something for us to look into as we start to convene our technical advisory committee and bring those questions to the table.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ho.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for being here. Earlier, you mentioned during the presentation that there are 2 community plans that have incorporated, and I might say it wrong, the policies that have, or the policy goals within this policy framework. You mentioned 2 of them. Could you, without going into the nuts and bolts of it, could you elaborate a little bit on how did that look like, the implementation of these goals within the community plan work? Thank you.
So I believe it was the South LA and Southeast LA community plans that were fairly recently updated. So the one thing that we do have purview over is land use and zoning. And so those community plans are part of the land use element of the city general plan. And the way we were able to implement not all policies, but most of the ones that are related to land use is we developed a tool called the Community Plan Implementation Overlay. And what this does is it establishes additional rules over the zoning rules where every project that is coming into the area has to comply with. And so we embedded a lot of additional rules that really provide protections for sensitive uses, residential areas, from, for example, industrial uses that are nearby. So that's how we embedded some of or implemented some of the policies within this overlay zone.
Could I ask a follow-up question? So I'm not sure you could, thank you, you could speak to the community plan side of the work, but when we say a community would embark on the updating the community plan, is this something that the community could get engaged in, or would it be the planning department working with your unit in looking at what needs to be implemented?
Well, there are different divisions within the planning department. So we are in the citywide policy planning division. We're working on issues that affect the entire city, but each community, there's also a community planning bureau within the planning department, and they're the ones that are charged or tasked with updating the community plans.
Okay, but you work hand in hand is my question, I guess.
Yes. Some of us used to work in community planning. I worked in the South LA area and most recently in the Wilmington area, and those are very community plan areas that have been dealing with a lot of environmental justice issues, and so I think that's why we're now working in this unit, because we bring the local knowledge about these types of issues up to the citywide level. But there is, just to answer your question about community engagement, every single community plan update includes a very robust community engagement process within that community plan area.
Thank you.
And maybe just some clarification, Gabriela Juarez. The community plans make up the land use element of our general plan. So that's how we dovetail together. Because the city is so large, it's impossible to create rules for everyone. So breaking it into 35 community plans helps to tailor those policies that reflect the priorities through that process.
Thank you.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Carr?
For the climate vulnerability assessment, I think this is a great idea. It's really looking into maybe some of the nuanced ways climate change is affecting the community. But, just to give our idea of what your goals were on that, what are some anticipated actions that might come out of this evaluation?
So the CVA is a one-year effort, and the goal is to create a report with recommendations and mitigations that are developed through the documentation of the lived experience of these communities that have been most pollution burdened. And the range, we anticipate that the range of recommendations will not just be for our environmental justice policy team, but also other departments in terms of the recommendations that are within their jurisdiction to implement. As we stated, we have a specific role and responsibility as the planning department. So there are some policy efforts that will likely come from that list of recommendations. However, many will likely live outside of the planning department's jurisdiction and be within, for example, street services or Department of Transportation, Rec and Parks. These are other departments that we would be partnering with and sharing to them what these recommendations are. And similar to what we do with our other reports is we present that to City Council, and City Council will then decide whose budgets are prioritized. And with the hope of having our community partners able to support that, they can help us also advocate for prioritizing those budgetary requests as well.
I see. Yeah, so like a reservoir of information that hopefully has a cascade of, decision effects. I gotcha.
Yes, we anticipate it'll be kind of like a next step for us to help with the climate equity story that we're trying to catalog, as well as document the lived experience that hasn't been coupled with the climate data that has been documented throughout the city over time.
So, in follow-up to that, are your recommendation and report go directly to the city council? Does it go to the subcommittee of the council, or does it go to the individual council members themselves?
Well, currently it's going to be presented to city council, but there may be subcommittees that it gets referred to prior to it going to full city council, and city council committees are all comprised of council members, and they're all our partners in this work. So especially those areas that have been enumerated in today's presentation, those council districts are most invested in those recommendations.
And the recommendations that you make, again, same thing, does it go to the whole city at large, or does it go up through the city council directly and then they vote and or debate it?
The report is a report, so there's really not an adoption process per se, but rather just a report of findings and recommendations. The city council would then decide if they want to move forward with those recommendations through budget support or council motions, more specifically to departments that have the jurisdiction to implement those recommendations.
And as you envision it, is the recommendations also with a request for funding, or is it just general recommendations on policy?
In general, our process is that a report would outline recommendations, and then council would make motions to a specific department asking for the budget that would be necessary to support that request, that recommendation.
Excellent.
I have a budget question. You touched on it quite a bit. What is your current budget now? And then as you're thinking about those funding requests, is there a gap in that budget that is already identified, and what does that look like?
Is that specifically for
To the programs?
The climate vulnerability assessment, or all of the work that we're sharing?
For the programs, the programs that they're active right now, and the ones that are paused.
For the climate vulnerability assessment, to create the report, we do have a contract, and that is covered. The environmental justice policy work, I'll let Marie share details on those current numbers.
For the environmental justice unit, we do have to go back and ask for the funding for the staffing every budget year.
Thanks.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for your work. The plan for a healthy LA was adopted in 2015, and it pretty much sat on the shelf until, I guess, SB 1000 came into effect. And well, thanks to that, I remember when I visited Marie, you just started looking into updating the different 91 programs in the plan for a healthy LA. And, thank you for this concise pie chart of where we are. But, I think one of the things, this is part of city planning. I think we have to look at this being something sustainable forever and not to have as a goal of, oh, okay, this program is completed, so let's stop, right? And then if we do, then this plan's going to get shelved again. So, with the vision of how we can make this a sustainable effort, I believe the consulting firm that was hired to prepare the plan for a healthy LA, they were doing outreach a few years before, and once again, with the focus on environmental social justice, we're doing outreach again, which is fine, but hopefully we can see progress. And I know President Mandel mentioned about parks, and that really is something that's lacking here in LA. But any open space, we know there's going to be competition for it with housing for the homeless and everything. And I guess this is probably a really long-term project. But working with LAUSD, they're an island to themselves. They have their own policies, and there was a time 20 years ago, I guess, where liability wasn't such an issue, and was going to pay for keeping the bathrooms open. But over time, with lack of money and the liability issues, it just got closed down. It's really sad to see spaces that can be used in communities. So I would hope that someone from this unit would try to work overtime, and LAUSD, their bureaucracy changes too, with and people in the future, if not the current superintendent, in the future may have a different vision. And so that would be one of the recommendations I would like to make for you guys to follow through with. And I believe when the Office of Petroleum and Natural Gas Administration and Safety was formed, that was about 2016. There was one person, and that person presented to us here. I don't know how big the staff is now. I know that person who started isn't.
They're still understaffed, and recently they did present at the Energy Committee sharing that they had a team of 3, and those 2 of the 3 have moved on to larger roles, and so they're back down to 1. It's a constant challenge.
Okay, so we're in 2024, and this is 8 years later. We can see what's happening. There's a limit to how much money that's going to be budgeted for things like this. That's obvious. So we can't keep hoping to get more money to be able to do more things. How can we be working with community partners, and I believe churches are really great institutions because they care for their membership in the communities, but to make this sustainable, right? And money shouldn't be the issue of whether we can make this sustainable or not. Okay? The goodwill of Angelenos should be the capital that we're investing in, and not asking for more dollars. There's a limit to that. And so, to just have a vision of trying to, get sustainability. One of the things I like to recommend, and for future, have someone present from LA 28. The Olympics are coming in, and they're looking into investing into a lot of programs, and they're looking into sustainability as well. LA 84, we still hear programs that are going 40 years later, right? And so I'm sure LA 28 would like to have the same impact and beyond. So, working with these partners and starting in these disadvantaged areas. And so when Plan for a Healthy LA was adapted, there was the Health Atlas, and you brought that up. And pretty much, I think Kim Bernstein, when he presented, he was saying that this is constantly being updated. And not much really has changed since 2015 when this was presented. The socially, economically disadvantaged areas are still the same 8 years later, right? And how can we work to change this? And I know you have to work with a lot of departments, 25. And I remember before 2021, we would have presentations from city planning on updates from the Plan for a Healthy LA, and one of the things was, unless we have a mandate from the mayor, we can't get everybody on board because everybody's doing their own thing. Okay. And so, try to work closely, get one of the mayor's deputies onto that committee and grab that person to be communicating to the mayor that, hey, this is something that's important. And try to get the mayor's backing for this to give it, I guess, more influence. There's so many, she's hiring so many new deputies. I'm sure one of them could be representing this city planning group. So hopefully, I don't know if I'll be serving 8 years later, but we'll see changes in the city atlas and things, and we're not going to be repeating the same thing. Oh, there's no money. But yeah, I'm glad that you who have been working with city planning are on this, because you have that experience of working locally and you know what has to be done. But it's a tough job. It's really a tough job to make changes. It's really, but it's necessary, and the commission will like to do everything possible to bring this to light. And one of the things I like to ask President Mandel and this commission is, this report should have been done last year, and unfortunately we didn't have quorum, so it was postponed to this year. But I would like to include their report in our 2023 annual report, so it gets out this year to the council members and not a year later.
We could do that.
If that's possible.
Yeah, I think we can do that. So the same way you make reports, we are mandated, actually, by ordinance to make 2 reports a year to the council. Though it's come to form that we give 1 a year, and that process is going on now, and we're writing it. So we would like to include some of your information. We would have our research associates reach out to you. If there are major issues that you want advocated for you, I think we can bring it back to this commission without your presence here, but we could do it within our internal workings and put it into our report so we can advocate for you. Because I think I'll probably, knowing most of the commissioners, we all agree with everything that you're doing, and we applaud what you're doing and appreciate your hard work for the people of the city of Los Angeles and the environmental justice policy that you're creating, and we'll advocate for it. So I don't think that'll be an issue. I would say to Commissioner Kato that glaciers move very slow, but they're very powerful. In the 8 or 9 years that some of us have been on this commission, we are making slow progress to improve the quality of health, and we thank your committee and your division for all the work you're doing as well. Any other commissioners have a question for the esteemed group of city workers for us?
I just have one quick question. You talked about recommendations and policies being created. I'm always thinking about implementation and oversight. So it's like if you talked about the process of it's being presented, council members will make decisions about, where they might want to put priority. But what if, if something is selected, what is that oversight to actually, or maintenance of oversight of what was agreed to or supposedly wanted and money going forward, that actually happens? And if there's anything in between that's not moving that, is there anything, just also curious about that, because as you're thinking about, if we include something in the report, it would be nice to even highlight if recommendations are being made and if things aren't being followed through or carried out the way it was either approved or thought about. Is there anything, or if not, being able to raise that?
Yes, so with having a report with recommendations, we would likely try to identify which department would be overseeing that recommendation in its implementation. And we, as the planning department, don't dictate process to other departments in terms of how they implement. So they would have their own process by which they establish the implementation and also the maintenance. But I think to your point, the accountability aspect of it is one of the concerns that is very difficult for everyone to follow. And you reflect quite a number of concerns that we've heard already through this process. And so what I think we're going to be trying to develop just as part of this effort is a chart or some sort of flow chart that helps people understand roles and responsibilities of departments, because we're not very good at telling that story. We as the planning department are the face that most community members and stakeholders see as part of our engagement process, and they don't understand the process and bureaucracy. They just know it takes a long time for anything to happen, and it's very frustrating because we come back to them and they're like, why haven't you done anything, city planning? You're here again. And so we need to be better about sharing the logistics, the next steps, and how to hold the city departments and agencies accountable to those implementation programs and how they're able to access advocating for those priorities, because I think that's an area that we could definitely improve upon.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Rita, please.
So I'd just like to add, since before moving over to the city clerk, I've been with a lot of different city departments, planning being one of them. And I think that part of the problem, and I hear what the commissioner is saying, I'm offering this for clarification, for additional information, is that departments do work in silos. And everybody, requests their budget for whatever, priorities they want to see implemented. It could be some pet projects for council members, or the mayor's priorities, or what have you. And those different departments may have a process for engaging the public and getting input into what kinds of programs, projects should be implemented and be funded and implemented. And so with the planning department, it's not so much implementation as it is policy work. And like I said, strategies in terms of the general plan and the community plans or what have you. So if the departments are working in silos, then how do you get a department to buy into that vision of, these are some of the recommendations, some of the issues that should be addressed, and then, allocating funds to that. And so until you get the city to look at issues more holistically, it's going to be hard to do that. And the way you can do that is if you get that community engagement piece, a really strong community engagement piece, where you can have the people saying the same thing at all the, because there's community meetings for community development and the CDBG funds and what have you. You have to, it's establishing that priority list of things that people want to see happen in their neighborhoods. And so that becomes a difficult thing. But so if for planning for the Environmental Justice Unit, if there are some clear recommendations for the to give to the commission in terms of what are some of the things that you would like to see the commission help push forward, whether it's, you know, stressing the importance of working more cooperatively, whatever that may be, just to help implement some of the recommendations and policies that are coming out of your work.
President. So, yeah, and, you know, like each major mayor comes in with their plan, right? So the plan for a healthy LA started under Villagriosa. So I don't think, you know, Garcetti was too into moving it forward, but he came out with Vision Zero. And, you know, that's pretty much under the Department of Transportation. But one good, I think it was about 2017, I can't remember the staff's name, but there was somebody in the Department of Transportation that knew of the plan for a healthy LA, knew of the Atlas, knew of the areas where there was you know, disadvantaged communities, and focused their Vision Zero studies starting in that area where there may be more incidents, traffic incidences. So I think, you know, there was an overlap. I don't know if it was coincidental, intentional, but still, these things, if it's caught by city planning, to pick up and run with it with those people that are there. But you know, right now, I think the main issue is about the homeless and housing, and you know, this could be put on the side by, you know, different departments. But still, I believe there's hope that I really understand how the departments work in silos, but this is why I said, you know, if you could get one of the deputy mayors to be on your side, it'll help bring the people in. It's not a department going to a department, but it's the mayor's office saying, hey, you guys got to work together, right? And sort of force it to come along. I think it'll go faster.
And Commissioner, to your point, there are linkages that overlap. In the Plan for Healthy LA, the mobility section does overlap with our mobility plan. So those are the areas where there is the opportunity for collaboration, and it's just a matter of being able to align our programs, because one of the other issues that we run into is timing.
Mm-hmm.
We get budget constraints of it has to be filed or completed by X amount, the money has to be spent by a certain time, and as Fabiola elaborated, we were unable to encumber
Mm-hmm.
those funds in a manner of a logistical constraint. So these are also the challenges administratively that we're trying to overcome in this process, and patience is
Right, I mean, if
never
you can
enough.
enlighten the people that run the budget, and maybe, you know, start looking into how, you know, not the deadline to spend it, but hey, this is the project timeline. There has to be ways to change the system. The system's pretty much broken, and we see what's happened. So, yeah, I think if you can highlight, hey, this is what happened to us because we just didn't have enough time and the logistics didn't work, and bring that out, and maybe in the future they can be a little bit more lenient or find exceptions.
Commissioner Shannon.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. When you're doing your community engagement and outreach and getting feedback from the community, how do you incorporate the experience of our unhoused community? So for instance, for climate change and extreme heat, for someone who is living unsheltered, that's gonna have a different impact on someone who can't go inside during the daytime when it's very, very hot, or may not have options to go inside. And for air pollution and, you know, living underneath freeways or next to freeways, that kind of impact would be, you know, very extreme, I think, for people who are unhoused. So I'm just wondering if you're looking at that and incorporating that experience into your plan.
I can speak to the climate vulnerability assessment first, and then the environmental justice policy team can elaborate on their experience and inclusion. We're just embarking on our community partners program to dive into those conversations, but we are also partnered with the Climate Emergency Mobilization Office that's charged with developing the heat action plan. So we're looking to dovetail our efforts and also look to expand as future recommendations, should the timing not align, on when the plan comes out for the heat action plan versus the recommendations for the climate vulnerability assessment. We're under the understanding that the heat action plan will have future evolutions of updates similar to other plans. So we'll have the opportunity to continue to elaborate, expand, focus, what have you, to be able to incorporate that comment in a timely manner.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that, yeah, we understand that the unhoused are, each of these environmental injustices is just exacerbated if the person is unhoused. So we do understand that, and we are getting feedback around that. And we'll continue collecting that feedback and making sure that we work with our housing team and the other planners working on housing policies and homeless prevention to work together on that. So definitely keeping that in mind.
Any other commissioners? The only thing I would ask you is, as you get information, you get data that you think is very significant, feel free to send it our way. You have our emails, and we will be receptive and responsive to it. So if you find things that are surprises in your data collection or reinforce what you've been articulating, then I would ask you to send it our way, so we could be kept informed and up to date with the most accurate information. I would thank you again for presenting today, taking time to prepare and come to educate us and the people of Los Angeles. We thank you for all your efforts, and personally I wish you all the happiest and healthiest of New Year's, filled with peace and prosperity and health. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, commissioners, again for having us tonight, and thank you very much for the support that you've shown us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Moving on to the next agenda item is ideas for further discussion. We have two agenda items already for the February meeting that have already been orchestrated and planned, which were potentially going to be here as well for January, but we could not logistically make it work. So we've got two pretty well organized presentations for February, though we could have a third if you felt it was important. And then we're looking for suggestions for March and April.
So one is Cedars, right?
Yes.
And the other one is?
Monica, do you remember?
It's Veritas Consulting, and it's also Visión y Compromiso. So they are
Yes.
all are going to talk about how their organizations tackle on community health with community health workers and promotoras de salud.
Is it with the Federate, the clinics, or?
No, these are not. Well, Cedars does work with clinics, but the other two are looking at it. One is looking through an environmental lens, and the other one is multidisciplinary, like different areas.
Please.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Hill.
Thank you. There is one item that I have brought up to Ms. Moreno, and I did not follow up with you because I did not have much tangible information at the time. I'm hoping that we will in the future, but there is that motion that the City Council passed. I believe it was authored by Councilmember Blumenfield, and I don't want to misspeak. It was that specific motion to request that the Health Commission has a discussion slash study slash recommendation about the specific funding that is available on how to deliver services, how the city could deliver services to. I wasn't prepared to speak tonight, so forgive me, my memory is a bit sketchy, but it's about, essentially it's based on that motion.
We can look into that and address that, and we can have a discussion, a robust discussion here about how to address that. We should probably, Rita, given the budget plans and the scheduling of the budget, start working on requests so that our commission itself would be funded as we've requested over the last 6 years, and that we should probably bring to the commission a discussion as an agenda item so that we could discuss and approve a specific request so that we can send it officially to the budgetary committee.
Well, you know, the budget letter that was drafted for submission in, I believe it was November that we did that. So that letter has been incorporated into the city clerk's budget request. So for the first time, the city clerk is submitting as part of its budget a request for funding for this commission.
So that'd be for fiscal 24-25?
Correct, which would begin
Okay,
in
so
July.
it was a supplemental request, which has then been carried over to the regular process.
Right, so the mayor has that, which means that the city administrative officer is looking at it. I don't know what the city administrative officer will say about the request, whether they agree with it, whether they think it should be less or what have you, but the commission's request involves 3 separate positions, funding for, to run an office, and also funding for, I believe it was 3 or 4 studies that the commission was interested in conducting. And so that is part of the clerk budget. I will get that to all of you, that budget letter, so everybody's aware of what's included, what's being requested, and it would probably be a good idea to schedule, try to schedule a meeting with, at least with the chair of the council committee that has jurisdiction over this commission, which is the Neighborhoods and Community Engagement Committee, chaired by Councilmember Hernandez, who also introduced the motion to get funding for this commission to have its
Right.
meetings and what have you. So I will send that out and then ask you all for who would have the flexibility to possibly attend meetings, because as you know, it will probably be during regular business hours.
I'll make myself available.
So as soon as I know when any of those meetings are going to take place, where the budget committee and or the city administrative officer may be asking questions about the city clerk's request, so that you're aware of what's happening and could also participate in that discussion.
Great, that'd be wonderful, thank you.
Mr. President, just for the record, the council file related to that motion is Council File 221475. And if I could just, as a point of reference, mention that the motion itself, I'm just going to read the tiny paragraph. It says, number 4, it says, request the City Health Commission to report on the health, mental health, and behavioral health needs of people experiencing homelessness in the city, and how best to align the delivery of these services with the priorities set by HHIP. HHIP being the healthcare, the Housing and Homeless Incentive Program.
Yeah. So we could we do address that, we have addressed that, and we probably should continue to address that. But I think that we could maybe look for March to bring some experts in, so that we can get new information that is probably going to say very similar to what we've had presented last year, but I think it's always good to stay informed. Commissioner Shannon, your eyes lit up.
Yeah, well, I think one thing that we could do is just compile that, or take out that section, or take from our section of the report, and just pass that along to the council member, because I think that would be great. You know, rather than just handing them the whole report, just respond by at least passing on that section to the council office. Because I think some of this is already addressed in our annual report. We can go farther. Obviously, I don't think we deal as much with the mental health issues for our in-house community. But I think as a start, we might want to just take that section and send it over.
Please.
So from what I understood, yes, obviously the county is doing the mental health services, but from what I gathered, the city also wants to do that where there's a gap, I think. And these dollars have a deadline to them. I don't know what the deadline is, but there's a deadline on these dollars. So that's what it is.
I think our recommendations are pretty comprehensive.
From last year.
Yeah. I mean, we've been doing this now for quite a while, right? Since I think our first report was 2015. And we have had recommendations regarding our in-house community in every single report, all of which would impact any of those issues regarding health or mental health. Not as comprehensive on the mental health end, but certainly all of those have been, you know, presented to our council members in the report, have been relayed to them, you know, in private meetings, yeah.
I make sure to
I'm not saying that we shouldn't invite experts. I think that's fine, but I also think that we've done a lot of work on this, and I think we should be sending that over to them. Even, you know, as a response to this, we can send it to the council member.
Was that a request from one council member, or was it from the city council committee, or from the council itself?
It's a request from the council, from the city council. It's a council file, and it was addressed at the homelessness and poverty, well, it's not called that anymore, sorry. The homelessness and from what I see here on the council file, it's a motion from the city council.
So that would be Commissioner Rahman, who heads up that committee?
I apologize, I take that back. It's from the committee. It's from the homelessness and poverty committee.
Yeah, so it would be Commissioner Rahman. So we should
Yes.
get that to Commissioner Rahman.
Yeah, we could do
Oh,
that.
council member, sorry.
We could do that without a vote, because it's already been in the
Okay.
the report. So we could pull that out, and it could be sent, depending on how you want it to go, Commissioner Ho. It could come from you and Commissioner Shannon together to the committee, and or if you want to come from, you know, my email, it's my pleasure to have it come from me. But you're both welcome to send it together jointly, without us having a vote on or debate or discussion here. It's already been approved by the body at large. We've approved it. It's been published officially, so we can easily pull out that section, and you guys can send it. And we're working on the new report, so that when that's done, we can send it to her as well.
Where could I find the report? I'm sorry, I wasn't aware that there was.
It's actually on our website, but we'll have
the
Rita
website?
send you the report directly, and so you'll have the whole report easily downloadable.
Okay, thank you.
But
Commissioner
for the
Shannon, were
city,
you-
for anybody who's watching on on public television. The city clerk has done an amazing job of informing the city of every action of this commission. Our commission has a part of the city clerk's website that has all our minutes, every presentation going back, I think, since Commissioner Cato was first joined about 8-9 years ago, and every report that we have published is available and downloadable, and is very extensive and well done, primarily thanks to our excellent research associates.
Commissioner Shannon, you were going to get the paper copies of the 2022. Were you able to?
So we have a grant to print, so I think we should do that.
We definitely should.
Yeah, there just needs to be one little change that I'll talk to you guys about, but.
Yeah, you can talk to the city clerk's office, and that'd be wonderful. Thank you. And for those who are out in TV land, Commissioner Shannon was able to get a grant to help print our report because the city had not given us any budget for printing them. So electronically it is available to everybody in the city, but we felt it would be important for the chiefs of staffs and all the city council members and other elected officials, including members of Congress, to have hard copies of our last year's report, and hopefully in the future as well. Other ideas for, please?
Sometime this year, I'd like for representatives from LA 28, the Olympic Committee. You might say, oh, it's 4 years down the line, but they're already promoting the Olympics and trying to get people on board as the host city. And they have programs that they want to continue beyond the Olympics. And I think a lot of those programs could also be aligned with the programs that are in the Plan for Healthy LA. So if we can sort of tie it up, I think it'd be nice.
In my recollection is Professor Anne Ramoyne, when she was speaking to us about monkeypox, also talked about other potential concerns with global spread of disease. And so potentially we could reach out to her if we got the Committee 28 to come to talk about issues, to have her come the same time and maybe address it, and maybe she and or one of her postdoctoral students could potentially talk about new diseases on the horizon that we should as a city be wary of for 2027 and 2028. I think that would be a good idea.
Okay.
That's a good idea. Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else?
Along the lines of the Olympics, for other cities in the U.S. that have hosted the Olympics, if they've done any post-Olympic studies on the impacts of the Olympic on public health of those cities, it might be useful for us to get an insight on things we might expect for our city.
Well, we hosted it 40 years ago, or
That's
84
true.
or so.
That's true.
Let's start with our own city and see.
Sure. But yeah, if there's been any actual organized, comprehensive studies of public health impacts post-Olympics, that might be interesting to get insight on.
That would actually be, for our research associates, Monica, that would be a really great thing if you could research that, or have your colleagues research that the last, say, 4 Summer Olympics, because that's what really we're referring to see what those cities did pre, during, and post. I'm aware of when the Beijing Olympics were, the leadership of the PRC was concerned about orthopedic health, and approached what was then the Century City Doctors Hospital, where there was leading orthopedic specialists, and contracted with Century City Doctors Hospital to create a protocol for orthopedic injuries from sport, and had volunteers from Los Angeles go, orthopedic surgeons, nurses, and operating room technicians, and set up and educate their surgeons in Beijing, but also to have them there as consultants so they could approach sports-related injuries. So there is a precedent for Los Angeles to be actively involved in improving the health of Olympians, but I think it's also important for us to, for the population of people coming here to visit and watch the games, but also for the people who live in the city. I think it's a good idea. Yeah, Commissioner Shannon?
There can also be an impact on housing. In London, when they had the Olympics there, they created special housing for athletes that then became low-income housing for their unhoused community and low-income communities in London. So I'd like to know if there are any plans from the city on creating more housing based on the Olympics coming here.
All the hotels that they're creating to sustain like the actual event. I know a few years ago when I used to work in hospitality, like education and training, they were saying that they were building like 43 hotels, I think, to accommodate the Olympics and all the special events. So, you know, what are the opportunities for that?
And the only other thing to add, in terms of what you just shared, I'm also curious about safety. So when you also have large events, you also have other issues related to safety, and to already have issues of trafficking that exist already. So also just curious if there's anything in the research that comes up around that, because I would be curious about those kind of plans.
I was going to say, as far as safety, I can tell you that there are numerous task forces already created within the city, both from LAPD and cyber, related to both World Cup, which is first before the Olympics, and then the Olympics. So there's a lot of collaboration on that end.
And there's actually a discussion in the Los Angeles Times, I believe today, on building a people mover to connect the train system right to the sports facilities in Inglewood, though not in LA City, but it would connect to rapidly move individuals, and that's talked about as being a $3 billion rapid construction project. So there is, somebody has money out there for some actions, so it'd be interesting to kind of see whether there is an appropriate risk-benefit analysis or cost-benefit analysis of that versus quality buses and saving money and using it for, say, public health purposes. That I don't know, but I'm not sure who's making the decisions. Any other commissioners, any other ideas? Seeing none, is there a motion for adjournment? So Commissioner Kalfani moved, and Commissioner Kato seconded, though Commissioner Hisrick was almost right there. Any questions or discussions about adjournment? Seeing none, all in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? No, it's unanimous. Thank you.